We often hear the phrase, if you want to get better at something, you have to do more of it. You have to practice. And hearing that, I think you're like, well, yeah, duh, Emily, that that sounds about right. If you want to get good at anything, you have to actually do the thing. But I think it's advice that we often overlook. Welcome to the Mindset Gym podcast, where we exercise your way of thinking to help unlock your hidden potential. I'm your host, Emily Irwin, a registered nurse and holistic nutritionist with a passion for all things health, fitness, and personal development. All right, let's get into it. Hey everyone. I hope everyone's having an amazing start to their Monday. Welcome back to the Mindset Gym podcast. So we are talking about a topic today that I think at face value seems very obvious. It seems like advice that I think once you hear it, you're going to be like, well, duh, I know that. But we're going to dive a little bit into it and talk about some ways that we are getting it wrong and not approaching this piece of advice in the way that I think we should. So we often hear the phrase, if you want to get better at something, you have to do more of it. You have to practice. And hearing that, I think you're like, well, yeah, duh, Emily, that that sounds about right. If you want to get good at anything, you have to actually do the thing. But I think it's advice that we often overlook, or because of certain ways of thinking, we go out of our way to avoid. And we wonder why we're missing the mark and why we're not making the progress that we want to make, why we're not getting the results that we want to see. So we're going to talk about a couple of ways that we tend to get this wrong. When it comes to practicing any new skill, any new habit, any new thing that you want to achieve in your life, you're going to have to start out as a beginner. You're going to have to start out when you don't have all of the knowledge. You're not going to be perfect at this thing right out of the gate. And I think part of the reason that we avoid practicing anything is because we have a fear of looking dumb. We have a fear of other people seeing us look inexperienced, looking like we don't know what we're doing, trying and failing. And so we worry about being judged, we worry about what other people think, and so we never actually take the steps to practice this thing. And I'm going to give you an example from my own life, and it was something that really held me back from getting to where we are now with this podcast for a while, and coming to this realization of how I needed to approach the skill of speaking on camera was how I was able to kind of finally move forward and progress to where we are today. And so when I first started sharing any sort of content regularly on social media with the goal of helping others, the goal of motivating, inspiring others, the thought of talking on camera was very, very scary. It wasn't something that was even on my radar because it terrified me so much. I was so nervous to put myself out there in that way. And so the content that I started sharing very early on, it was all content that did not have me talking in it. I didn't do any sort of voiceovers. I wasn't talking to a camera like this. I wasn't doing any of that because I felt so nervous about doing it. And I avoided doing it for so long because I thought, I don't know how to do this. It's not something I'm familiar with. And if I try to post a video of me talking to the camera or doing a voiceover or anything kind of in that realm, I'm going to look dumb. I was like, I'm going to look like I don't know what I'm doing. People are going to think I'm an idiot. And I was so worried about being judged that I never bothered to try. But I felt this pull. I always felt this pull, like this is a direction you need to take. Like if you want to help people in the best way possible, you need to be willing to put yourself out there in this new way. And so I just kind of let it sit in the back of my mind. I didn't really do anything about it because I was so afraid to take action upon it. Until one day, I was scrolling through Instagram and I came across a video from a girl, and I'll link her username in the description. But she said, if you want to get better at talking on camera, you have to practice talking on camera. And it seems so obvious when you hear it, but it truly had not dawned on me until that point that this was something I could practice before I actually went and started posting these things on my social media. And it was just kind of like that light bulb moment where I was like, oh my God, like Of course, this is something I need to practice at. I don't need to go and just post my first draft of a video on my social media. I can practice at this. And so this girl talked about just turning your camera on and just talking and just taking these videos, practicing talking to the camera and just deleting them afterwards and not putting them anywhere. And so I was like, well, that is an amazing idea because it eliminates that fear of looking dumb or having people see me not know what I'm doing, because no one's going to see these. I'm not posting them anywhere. They're not going to anybody's feed. So it eliminates this element of fear around getting started and trying and failing and learning along the way. So after I saw that video, I got to work. So the next, several weeks to months after that, anytime I was in my car or out for a walk or getting ready for work, I would turn my camera on and I would just start talking. I would, talk about my day. I would just talk about whatever came to mind. I would narrate what I was doing. Just whatever I could think about talking about at the time, I would just talk to the camera as if I was talking to somebody else. And then as soon as I was finished, just go back, delete the video. I never planned on doing anything with it. I never planned on sharing it with anyone. It just gave me a chance to start practicing and growing my comfort level with what I was doing. And that was what eventually propelled me into doing it on my social media, which eventually led to me launching this podcast, because I was able to actually work on this skill and take the time kind of in private to improve what I was doing and get a little bit better, so that when I'm bringing this type of content to other people, I'm bringing a better version of myself than I would have been able to before. And so if there's something that you're wanting to practice, like a new skill you're wanting to learn, something that you're wanting to get better at, and you're afraid of looking silly in front of other people, start in private. That you don't have to present your practice to other people. Other people don't have to see all the steps along the way if that is the part that's holding you back. So let's say writing a manuscript for a book is something that you want to do. You don't have to show the first 10 plus drafts to the masses. You can sit and work on them and practice at them and get a little bit better. And then when you get to a point where you feel really solid in this skill and you feel really comfortable with it, then you can kind of open it up to the public in a way. Or let's take working out, for example. Even certain exercises, if you are nervous about going into a really busy gym and trying out a new exercise for the first time, try it out at home. Do it, in your bedroom until you feel a little bit more comfortable and you feel a little bit more confident doing this thing out in public, and then go do it at the gym. Like, you don't have to start with your first attempt in front of a ton of people. That element of fear can really, really hold us back because we're afraid of messing up in front of other people. So you can start working on those kinks in private and start working through the things that you want to do until you get to a point where it feels more comfortable to do it in front of other people. Now, the second thing that we tend to do that hurts our progress and doesn't allow us to actually do what we need to do with practice is we procrastinate with preparation. And so we tend to kind of delude ourselves into thinking that these actions that we're taking are moving the needle in order to make us feel like we're making progress, when in reality they're not doing what you need them to do in order to make you progress. And so I'll give you an example of this. So let's say you are someone who wants to start running and you haven't ran in years. This isn't a skill that you're very comfortable with. Someone who is going to procrastinate with preparation is going to spend a ton of time researching the perfect running shoes, researching the best gym clothes, watching social media videos of other people running, and getting so caught up in preparing and making sure that everything is just perfect before they can start. And this is really just a form of procrastination because we're nervous about getting started and we feel unfamiliar, and so we spend all of this time trying to make sure everything is all lined up and everything is perfect before we can even start. And what we end up doing is just wasting all this time that we could have used actually practicing the thing. So all of this time that you spent researching the perfect running shoe or watching videos of other people running, you could have just thrown on the clothes that you already have and the shoes that are already in your home and just ran around the block. And had you started by doing that and done like a short run around the block and kept building from there and kept building from there, you'd be way further ahead than the person who has spent all of this time researching the perfect thing. So this is something that we need to work on when it comes to practicing new skills. You do not need to have everything perfectly prepared. You don't need to have 100% of the knowledge before you start taking any action at all. The way that you're going to learn and the way that you are going to improve any particular skill is not by being better prepared. It's by going and actually doing the thing. And the last way that we tend to get tripped up when it comes to practicing any new skill is going into it with the mindset that practice equals perfect. That we think, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do this thing a couple of times and suddenly I'm going to be an expert and everything's going to fall into place and it's just going to be perfect. But that's not the way things work. You're not going to, we're never perfect at anything. There's never going to be a time where you are 100% perfect at any skill. And so going into it with the mindset that you are going to achieve perfection sets you up for failure. It sets you up for disappointment and unmet expectations. And when we encounter those feelings, it can feel like all of this work that we're doing is for nothing, and it makes us want to quit. Because why bother? If I can't achieve this perfect standard that I've set for myself, what's the point of any of this? So a better way to think about it, instead of equating practice with perfection, equate practice with progress. So you are not working towards some perfectionist ideal with anything that you're working towards. That doesn't need to be the end goal. A good way to think about it is that every time you go and you practice this thing, you progress a little bit more. You get a little bit better at what you're doing. And so every time that you go in and you do the thing and you gain a little bit more experience, you get a little bit better and you progress along this trajectory. And if you keep that up over a long period of time, you are going to be miles ahead of where you were when you first started. Are you going to be perfect at it? No, of course not. But if that's not your goal, if you are simply striving for progress and looking for those elements of proof that you are improving a little bit, you've gotten a little bit better than you were before, it's much more motivating to stay on track because you can see those little bits of improvement. You start to get excited about the little things that you can tweak and the areas that you can improve a little bit along the way. And it becomes much easier to keep up with the practice when you see it that way. It also takes a little bit of the pressure off with the way that we approach practice because you're not going into anything expecting to do it perfectly. Your goal truly just needs to be do it 1% better than the last time. And so that's a much easier, that's a much more approachable goal. If you were going into a new skill that you're working on, the goal is just be a little bit better than the last time I did this. And that makes it much easier. That makes it, you can look for just a little small thing that maybe you weren't as good at the last time around that you can tweak a little bit and work on this time. And it makes practice feel a lot more fun. It feels like you are building towards something every time that you do it. And that will motivate you to engage and practice in this skill more often. So that's really all I've got for you today. I know this at face value, like I said, is really obvious advice, but it's advice that I think gets overlooked or implemented in an incorrect way. But if you approach practice from a place of just looking to make progress, looking to get a little bit better, and just being willing to dive in and do the thing, do it in a way that makes you feel comfortable, but do the thing. Don't do everything else around the thing in order to avoid actually taking action. Do the thing that you need to do to improve the skill that you're wanting to improve. Practice makes progress. Okay? So my homework for you this week, I want you to go out and find some way to practice a skill that you have been wanting to improve on. And you can let me know. I would love to hear from you guys what you are doing to put this into action. So if you have taken any small step to improve on something in your life, a skill that you're wanting to work on, a hobby that you're wanting to get better at, let me know. You can either share it on Instagram at Mindset Gym Pod or let me know in the comments so I can celebrate with you. And that's all I've got for you today. If you're still here, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode. If you like the show, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, or share the show with a friend. Your support allows this show to reach even more amazing people just like you, and it means the absolute world to me. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time at the Mindset Gym.